It was a crisp fall evening in downtown New York City. The streets were bustling with life, people hurrying to their destinations, trying to escape the chilly breeze as the city lights flickered to life, casting long shadows over the sidewalks. The scent of fresh coffee from nearby cafes mixed with the unmistakable aroma of street food, while the sound of busy chatter and car horns filled the air. Amidst this vibrant energy, a man named Jack Ellis walked briskly down the sidewalk, his tailored suit brushing against the sides of pedestrians as he made his way toward an upscale restaurant for a dinner reservation. Jack was a successful businessman, accustomed to the high life, the finest meals, the best clothes, the most luxurious events. His every step was purposeful, his eyes focused straight ahead, never wavering. As he approached a corner near the restaurant, he noticed something out of the ordinary: a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk, clutching a worn-out blanket around his shoulders. His face hidden beneath a tattered hoodie, his hands were curled into fists, holding onto a small cup, hoping for a bit of change from the people who passed by. His eyes were downcast, and his shoulders slumped in exhaustion. Jack barely spared the man a glance as he walked by, his mind preoccupied with the business deal that was supposed to take place over dinner. He had no time for distractions. He had worked hard for everything he had, and to him, the homeless were just a part of the city's background noise, a sad reality that he had long learned to ignore. But as Jack walked past, something unexpected happened. The homeless man, who had been silent up until that point, suddenly spoke. "Please, sir," the man said, his voice raw and desperate. "Can you spare $1? Just something to get me through the night." Jack's pace slowed just a fraction as he heard the man's plea, but he quickly dismissed the thought of stopping. He had heard these pleas countless times before. "Sorry, I don't have time," Jack muttered under his breath, quickening his steps. But then the man's words cut through him, and for the first time in a long time, Jack hesitated. "You don't know who I am," the homeless man said softly, almost as if he had expected Jack to ignore him. "But I know exactly who you are." Jack stopped dead in his tracks, turning slightly to face the man. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his irritation growing. "I know you," the homeless man continued, his voice now steadier. "I know exactly who you are. Jack Ellis, the successful businessman, the one who's always too busy to notice the people around him." Jack took a step back, startled. How could this man possibly know him? Jack had never seen him before, and he certainly hadn't taken the time to learn about the lives of people like him. He felt a pang of discomfort, but quickly dismissed it. "Look, I don't have time for this," Jack said, trying to walk away. But before he could take another step, the homeless man spoke again. "You think your success came easy, don't you?" the man said, his tone almost accusatory. "You think you earned everything on your own, that you worked hard for all of it. But I know your story, Jack." Jack's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. "What do you mean you know my story? Who are you?" he demanded. The homeless man paused for a moment, his eyes piercing through Jack as if he could see right into his soul. "I'm not just anyone. I'm someone you used to know." Jack's stomach dropped. He took a step closer, leaning down toward the man. "What are you talking about?" he asked again, now curious despite himself. The homeless man slowly pulled down the hood of his sweatshirt, revealing a face that Jack had not seen in years. A face that was once familiar, a face he had forgotten but could never truly erase from his memory. It was the face of his older brother, David. David had been a successful engineer, once ambitious, bright, and full of promise. But over the years, things had started to go wrong. Personal struggles, bad decisions, and a failed marriage had driven David to the brink of despair. One day, he disappeared without a trace. Jack had tried to find him, but the search turned up nothing. It was as though David had vanished into thin air. But here he was sitting on the sidewalk, a shadow of the man Jack had once known. Jack felt his knees weaken as the weight of the truth hit him. "David," he whispered, barely able to speak. But how? How did this happen? David's face was worn and haggard, but his eyes, those familiar eyes, still carried the same spark of intelligence and wit that Jack remembered. He looked up at Jack, his expression a mix of pain and resignation. "Life happened," David said, his voice raw. "The kind of life that people like you don't think about. You get so caught up in your success, in your business deals and your fancy dinners, that you forget about the people who need help. You forget that you're not immune to the struggles that can take someone down." Jack felt a lump form in his throat. "I never forgot about you, David. I tried looking for you. I didn't know what happened." David let out a bitter laugh. "You didn't look hard enough. You didn't really care, did you? Not when your own life was going so well. And now, look at me. Look at where I am." Jack was silent, guilt gnawing at him. He had no words. He had been so wrapped up in his own world, his own ambitions, that he had completely lost track of his brother, the one person who had always been there for him when things were tough. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the city seemed to fade into the background as Jack looked at his brother, the man he had once loved and admired, now reduced to a mere shell of himself. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "David, I'm sorry. I should have been there for you. I should have done more." David nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "You can't change the past, Jack, but you can change the future." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his shaking hands. "What can I do to help you? I don't even know where to start." David looked up at him, his face unreadable. "You've already done it. You're here. You see me. That's more than anyone else has done in a long time." Jack stared at his brother, a deep sense of shame filling his chest. But there was also something else, a spark of hope. He realized that this moment, this conversation, had changed everything. He wasn't going to let David fall through the cracks again. This time, he was going to make things right. A few weeks later, Jack made sure that David got the help he needed. He arranged for him to enter a rehabilitation program and provided him with housing. Jack didn't stop there. He used his business connections to help David get back on his feet, giving him a job in his company, where David's skills and experience were more than valuable. The homeless man on the sidewalk had turned out to be Jack's brother, the man who had once been the closest person in his life. And the truth, as hard as it was to hear, had been the catalyst for Jack's transformation. It wasn't just about saving David, it was about opening his own eyes to the world around him, to the struggles that so many people face every day. People like his brother, who had fallen through the cracks, while Jack had lived in his bubble of success. For Jack, it was a wake-up call, a reminder that no matter how much money, power, or success one had, they couldn't forget the people who needed help the most. And for David, it was a second chance, a chance to rebuild his life, to find hope again, and to reconcile with the brother who had once turned his back on him. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories about redemption, family, and second chances. Sometimes all it takes is a twist of fate to change everything.